The Elements of Friendship, Book 1, Harmony, by Amaris Fagaland. Chapter 19, The Spark That Ignites the Fire. The streets of Ponyville were in chaos. Earth ponies, Pegasi, and unicorns swarmed about the streets and began to set up their own impromptu parties. As word quickly spread from the bonbonniere, the Twilight Sparkle and her band had returned to Ponyville with the power to overthrow Nightmare Moon. The ponies who had been hypnotized by Nightmare Moon for so long and had formed the backbone of her Nightmare Guard slaughtered their ebony armor and piled them up in front of the gazebo. Across several of the haphazardly set tables were radios set to a variety of channels, playing a babble of reports from across the nation. Evidently, some pony within Ponyville had set up a pirate radio station and had put out the word across the waves that the Nightmare Guard had been thoroughly routed in Ponyville. Because one report on the radio spoke of the destabilization of the Nightmare Guard in various installations around Equestria within the past hour. Party poppers, the weak kind, not the strong kind that Pinkie Pie specialed in, went off around town square. Balloons bounced along the ground, and pies and cupcakes and various other treats were passed freely about. "Come now, everybody!" cried the mayor from her home across the street in Town Hall, looking rather cross. "We must not lose our heads in all this excitement. We must hold our exuberance to higher, more collective standards." She would ordinarily have been the one to exercise the authority over the Ponyville villagers with the statement alone. But her crooked Prince Mosilla glasses and mushy mane and tail did not lend her much in the way of credibility. In addition, her supply of silver mane dye had dried up weeks before, and her vibrant pink roots were showing through her in both her tail and mane. It started when Dizzy Doo, the Pegasus male mare, started to snicker, her misaligned eyes skewing even more comically as she bit her lower lip. Her Earth Pony husband, the village timekeeper, John Smith Doo, gave her a curious look out of the corner of his eye, but said nothing.
"Mama, don't laugh,"
scolded their unicorn daughter, Dinky Doo.
"It's not polite to laugh at other ponies."
But Dinky herself, finding her mother's face amusing, started to laugh herself. Her friend, Pina Colada, a pale pink Earth Pony filly, and Pina's elder sister, Pinot Noir, the vineyard mare, started to laugh. Then Pinot's rosy unicorn daughter, Mornin Noir, began to chortle in spite of her mother, Mary Smith Noir, attempting to dissuade her, and beginning to laugh herself. Very soon, some 2 or 3 dozen ponies were laughing amongst themselves at the comically disheveled mayor. Mayor joined them in the laughter as well. Despite her comically displayed professionalism, the hope and joy that Twilight Sparkle and her band of Ponyville compatriots were this close to ending the everlasting night meant that she was not keen on taking on the role of reprimander. She joined the festivities mere moments later, and rumors that the mayor was related to Pinkie Pie began to gain credence as she proved to be a very apt party pony. Diamond Tiara scoffed.
"Oh, look at the mayor, trespassing about so flawlessly. You think she was one of the riffraff by the way she's acting."
The foals around her nodded in agreement. After Silver Spoon's betrayal, Diamond Tiara found herself for the better part of a week to be the pariah around Ponyville for some reason. Ha! Why, her own daddy had taken to calling her Deguli again, as though she were a no-good, worthless blank all over again. Back then, she bore her flank's blankness with the steadfast reassurance that, as a white-collar pony with blue blood in her veins, she was destined to have a truly glorious cutie mark. She earned the self-appellation of Diamond Tiara, just as she had earned her cutie mark. Who did Daddy think he was to treat her like that? Of course, all it took was some false tears and a facade of regret to reacquire her allowance, and a week of the same in public to regain the respect that Ponyville had given her so rightly before. But Silver Spoon would still not take her back, and Diamond Tiara was heartbroken. The great filly was the daughter of the richest family of Ponyville, and she did not want to be friends with Diamond Tiara anymore. And if she wasn't friends with Diamond Tiara anymore, how would Silver Spoon buy gifts and dress sales and such for her? Again, People, I think I may hate this diamond tiara the most of all. Yes, I hate her more than the serial killer! But, as Diamond Tiara quickly realized, once he met the 5 other foals in Ponyville Elementary, there were always other friends to make who would be willing to do things for her.
I mean,
Diamond Tiara continued,
ponies obviously elected her to do things for them, so why would she be palling around with a rabble like this? Maybe it's to improve her image to them,
pondered Roughshod aloud. The pale gray unicorn filly had a pale blue mane and a saddle cutie mark. One of her green eyes still bore the bruise of a punt for that no-good dodo Scootaloo, and all Roughshod had done was tell her the truth about how she would never fly. Such an ingrate. Diamond Tiara scratched her chin thoughtfully.
That may be it, Roughshod. I never thought about it.
Roughshod nodded hesitantly.
It does make sense,
mused the cream-coated Pegasus filly named Golden Parachute. Her wavy green-blue mane fell across purple eyes that were frequently in a half-lidded aloofness. She bore the cutie mark of a yellow-striped parachute floating over a 5-pointed star.
I mean, Miss Mayer needs to let ponies think that she actually cares about them. That way, all the ponies will vote for her, even if she does things they don't like.
Tony, the burly green earth pony colt, nodded and grunted in assent. He had a wide muzzle with a wide mouth like a toad's, and even had the cutie mark of a toad.
Diamond Tiara smiled. You guys are such great friends. You know that?
Yes, we know so. The Pegasus colt Silver Lion answered, his white mane bouncing slightly as he nodded. Upon his sky-blue flanks were a cutie mark of a dark cloud with a shimmering outline. Like Golden Parachute, his wings were full and well-developed, though his were more suited for gliding than flying. At least they weren't like that scruffy, family-less Scootaloo. His Diamond Tiara smiled broadened, eyes shining with mirth.
And how do you know it?
A dull green unicorn colt named Snake in the Grass spoke in response. Its lank, pale purple mane fell completely over his eyes, an elongated muzzle, and thin alicorn picking out from behind the curtain of his forelock. At the end of a slender body mane was a leonine tail that swept back and forth like a serpent. His cutie mark was that of a cobra poking its head out of the tall grass. His answer, on behalf of the 5 holes who made up Diamond Tiara's posse, was 6 words long. Because he did listen to be. Diamond Tiara beamed. It was nice to be popular. Swimming through the airspace between Ponyville and Canterlot, Twilight Sparkle, Applejack, Rainbow Dash, Rarity, Fluttershy, and Pinkie Pie did not feel the torrential winds as what they expected to buffet them about. Despite their high-speed movement over the plains south of Alicorn's Peak, only the faintest of breezes blew through their manes and tails. This is so awesome! Rainbow Dash shouted with a muzzle-wide grin. It's like I'm gliding on an updraft, but way faster! Try not to lose your head too badly, Rainbow! Twilight shouted back, though she would be remiss to admit she was not enjoying this as well. We have to keep our wits about us. Nightmare Moon is almost literally right in front of us. I don't think you know just how literally you're being there, Twilight! Applejack said, pointing fearfully ahead. Looking to her front, Twilight saw a miasmic cloud rising up from the highest tower of Endymion, a maniacal laugh echoing throughout Saddle Valley. For all that any pony who heard it knew, the cackle came from within the earth and air itself, as though some dread that slept in Tartarus for eons had roused, and spoke with a voice that shook the whole planet. No, T-Rex won't be coming for a little while.
We gotta put the pedals to the metals!
Pinkie cried, and the 6 mares wheeled themselves faster than ever, the breeze rising to a gale as the mountainside capital drew closer and closer. A great flash of light flared out from the rising miasma, and Twilight brought the element's shielding orb to a halt in the air, her and the other 5 mares shielding their eyes from the brilliant flash. It's incredible! Snapped the dark voice of Nightmare Moon from the night. Think
Like you and your ilk have evaded myself and my forces for so long, and managed to reawaken those damnable elements of harmony. This is more due to my own missteps than to your own supposed cleverness. You will not know victory tonight, as you may deal with me, Nightmare Moon, and all the powers of darkness! The light faded, and Nightmare Moon flapped her feathered bat wings in place, right in front of the element's shield. Twilight gasped, channeling her magic through the crown upon her head, a radiance of rosy Dwemer energy swirling about the star at the tip. Twin Dwemer beams converging for Twilight's Alicorn, and the crown of magic lancing out a Nightmare Moon. The dark Alicorn slithered through the air as though she were a serpent rather than equine, looping about the beam of harmony magic and giving a sinister laugh. "Ha ha 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 ha! You are too slow, Twilight Sparkle! You telegraph your magic terribly. Has dear Celestia taught you nothing about magic? Or has she been too preoccupied with teaching you the magic of friendship?" "Can it!" shouted Rainbow Dash, shooting out of the shield with the speed of a bolt of lightning, and raising a single hoof to strike Nightmare Moon across the muzzle. The Queen of the Night raised a foreleg to deflect the Cerulean Pegasus at the last moment, and as Rainbow Dash spiraled off out of control with a terrible shriek through the air, as though the very planet of Harmonia itself had been wounded by a fell sword of great power. Nightmare Moon examined her extended foreleg in disbelief. The pad swims made contact with the element of honesty as she struck Rainbow Dash and assumed the color of a grayish blue. Her already slitted pupils narrowed even further, and her jaw slightly slack. Twilight could not take her eyes off that patch of fur. Was that the true coat color of the enslaved Queen of the Night, beneath the possessive force of the miasma? "Every pony, use the elements of Nightmare Moon, now!" Twilight shouted, once more challenging her magic through the crown of magic. "You will not be permitted!" bellowed a legion of voices from Nightmare Moon's throat, a cyclone erupting around her that attacked the shield surrounding the remaining 5 ponies, catching Rainbow Dash and sending her to a violent tumble as she flapped her wings fruitlessly. "Dashie!" screamed Fluttershy in horror as Rainbow Dash fell down to the earth below and out of sight. There was no way to know she was alive or dead. Dark clouds loomed in from the north and south over the respective mountain ranges forming the Saddle Valley, a distant rumble of thunder preceding the oncoming storm. Forks of lightning reached down from the encroaching clouds as they came together, and when they touched the whole of Saddle Valley was blocked off from both starlight and moonlight. Hurricane winds whipping from the east and west as lightning bolts reached down to the treetops of Everfree, the crumbling marionettes of the palace of the 2 Alicorn queens, the thatched roofs of Ponyville. Nightmare Moon's Alicorn lit up with purple lightning, and a storm of lightning bolts rained down from the storm clouds onto the spherical shield of harmony magic around Twilight and friends. Hairline fissures formed along the spots where the bolts struck, and Twilight could feel the static in the air as the shield eroded under their corrosive barrage. This unprecedented magical control over the weather was far beyond the scope of any Pegasus that Twilight had ever read about. Not even Gerald Firefly had such fine ability to manipulate the direction and focus of lightning. No Pegasi had true control over lightning, only being able to guide the bolts in a general direction. The only pony who Twilight had ever read of making use of such fine magical control was Queen Celestia herself. Is the Queen of the Night as powerful as Queen Celestia? Twilight wondered. What other powers does she have that this might answer as perfect earning to her destructive ends? And what powers does Nightmare Moon have that the Queen Night didn't? Twilight, the shield won't last much longer! Cried Rarity in fear, her element of generosity flaring purple, and the shield's cracks momentarily shielding up in purple light. Nightmare Moon's eyes flashed, and the lightning assault renewed twofold. The purple shields on the shield dissolved, and the remains of the shield broke apart and dissolved into pink shards of light and dust, the winds taking Twilight and her friends and scaring them with shrieks of horror. Twilight's Alicorn flared,
and a bright pink shield appeared around herself, along with separate ones around each of the 4 ponies with her. As her horn's shimmer faded, the shields took up the color of each of the bearers' respective elements. Applejack took a deep breath, her apple-red orb drifting back toward Twilight as he smiled gratefully. "Not saved there, Sugar Cube. I reckon we could take Nightmare Moon like this."
"5 small targets are hard and hit 1 big one,"
squealed Pinkie Pie, as her blue orb bounced like a rubber ball.
"But what about Rainbow Dash?"
whimpered Fluttershy, reaching down to the bottom of her green orb, as her eyes desperately searched the ground, dozens of grosses of hooves below.
"Calm down, darling,"
Rarity said to the yellow Pegasus, her own trepidation apparent even within the semi-opaque sheen of her purple orb.
"I am quite certain that Rainbow Dash has recovered false in this. She is fine, I think."
The band was paralyzed. They knew Rainbow Dash to be relatively skilled at recovering from bad tumbles and wind gusts, but they would not have been good friends if they did not worry. If that fall had indeed been the end of Rainbow Dash, then they were short 1 element of harmony, and so unable to make use of the 6 Dwemer crafts to dispel Nightmare Moon. A monstrous grin on her face, Nightmare Moon wheeled back to the peak of Endymon's highest tower, hovering above the gleaming crescent floating between the 2 spires of the Tower of Everlasting Night. A torrent of black clouds swirling down to meet her as her Alicorn glowed like the North Star. "Through darkness and cold you have endured," Nightmare Moon recited ominously, a voice echoing from the North-Equest Mountains to the south. "Your absolutely defeat shall be assured. Born now from the sky, a grove of thorns, your final passing shall be mourned!" The twister of black clouds sent a web of chaining lightning down around Endymion, striking the mountainside and cliffside, and building and street alike. From each spot where lightning struck, steely cold vines, prickling with slender, shining thorns, erupted and coiled about one another, interlocking chain links about the walls of the darkened capital and towers, bowels and minarets, choking thoroughfares and sealing the moon gate. Streets and alleyways found themselves cut off from the sky, and Nightmare Moon laughed maniacally as the vines closed in on her balcony.
"What do we do?"
Twilight asked, her eyes wide with terror. Though Twilight and Sparkle and her friends had no way of knowing, Rainbow Dash had most certainly survived the fall quite handily. Had one of the element bearers come to an end, the remaining elements would have been rendered inert and powerless, and the 5 would have found themselves becoming very rapidly reacquainted with the charred remains of Udroot. The Silurian Pegasus tumbled for several seconds in free fall, the world around her a whirling rush of wind and darkness. She was in danger of her blood rushing away from her head and into her hooves as gravity pulled her to the earth. The world grayed out in front of her as the rest began to turn black. But when a beam of sunlight flashed past her face, she came back to herself and spread her wings as widely as she could, reorienting herself so she could catch the wind under her wings and slow her descent. Angling up, she redirected her downward velocity into an accelerated glide, flapping her wings to give herself a little more lift as the world returned around her. She looked down. She was over Sweet Apple Acres. She looked around. She was caught right in the middle of the confrontation between the Wonderbolts and the Shadowbolts. Rainbow Dash called, "Well, horse apples!" The Wonderbolts were clearly holding nothing back. Standing out amongst the lot, Spitfire blasted bolts of fire and sunlight from her wings, her mane and tail now veritably blazing. Soren generated tremendous gusts of wind that sent his Shadowbolt's opponents out off balance. Fleetfoot literally became one with the wind and swept her foes up in twisters and cyclones that she became. Silver Lining left a wake of twisters and tornadoes behind as he darted about. His surprise produced uncannily large balloons that burst like bombs before her foes. But the Shadowbolts themselves gave no quarter. Particularly, Nightingale summoned a swarm of her namesake bird comprised of darkness and miasma. The scent set about creating force-filled downdrafts in its attempts to send Wonderbolts plummeting to their deaths. Windshear set winds at severe angles to try and break the limbs of his Wonderbolt enemies. And Peregrine, the bat pony, generated glimmer flashes of moonlight, from her wings to blind and harm. Rainbow Dash had never seen the Wonderbolts in action like this before. Many of the moves they were pulling here were ones she had seen at shows or read about in her Wonderbolts fan mags. But she had not quite dreamt they would be so awesome in combat. Golden Eagle's Firefly Flash was a wonder to behold. But now that Rainbow had thought on it, it would most likely also function as a devastating military tactic. Maybe it would be really worth it to take a peek at a book on the Wonderbolt's extended military history at one point. Shaking herself out of her stupor, Rainbow Dash noticed that 2 Shadow Bolts had thus far managed to disorient Firestreak and Lightning Streak, and were beginning to make a move against Spitfire, who was preoccupied in combat with 3 other Shadow Bolts. She had not noticed the miasmic attack of the Shadow Bolt twins in time to evade them. Rainbow Dash narrowed her cerise eyes. It was time to break out the Buccaneer Blaze, sending a flare of golden fire golden wing, sending the Bat Pony Stallion flying into the Silver Ghosts and Apogee. Spitfire felt a flare of heat behind her. It didn't feel like the magic of any Wonderbolt she knew. Whirling around along with every Wonderbolt and Shadowbolt to face the source, the Flaming Pegasus thanked herself for not removing her flight goggles, which automatically blocked the blinding, prismatic light that was radiating from something. It was magnificent, almost as bright as the sun itself, and Spitfire had to keep her jaw from dropping at the sight. When the blazing light cleared, the Shadowbolt twins, Witch Hazel and Witch Elm, were holding forelegs over their melted flight goggles as they moaned in pain, hovering steadily between them. Wearing an intricate golden necklace marked in the middle by a street-train lightning bolt was the Ponyville Bronco. But there was something different about her. The arrogant air about her had changed. She still carried an aura of uncommon self-assurance, but there was a purpose about her that was lacking before. She was saluted sharply. "Rainbow Dash, Pegasus Guardian of Ponyville, reporting for duty, Captain." Spitfire goggled slightly, the accent around her passing out of her mind. The Bronco was one of the bearers. That must have been clear for weeks, but she wore it far better than Spitfire had previously given her credit for. Brash she still was, granted, but her recklessness was tempered by resolve, and if her Buccaneer Blaze was capable of such raw power in an untrained Pegasus, it could certainly be much more useful if its wielder was given aim and focus to make the full use of her ability. Spitfire smirked. "We gotta stop meeting like this, rookie," she said as he reached out a hoof to shake Rainbow Dash's. Nightingale swooped down like a shadow between Spitfire and Rainbow Dash, practically pushing her muzzle into Rainbow Dash's face. The victims of Rainbow's Buccaneer Blaze slid past the trio of Pegasi. Nightingale's eyes trailing from Witch Hazel to Witch Elm. The latter had a foreleg on the former, her lower forelegs revealing irises and pupils bleached white on eyes that gazed in unfocused fashion. Nightingale hissed in fury, pressing her nose against Rainbow Dash's. "Your raw power just blinded one of my bolts, Dash!" she snarled, white teeth shining in the dark. "I'm 1 suit short now, and you're a wild card. I've seen your resistance to being tied to one single path, the path of harmony. I will be willing to overlook the fact that Witchell will never be seen again if you take up her mantle as Shadowbolt. We are the premier flyers in all of Harmonia, unimpeded by the dark. You will find your calling here on the side of the Moon Monarchy." Nightingale's eyes flashed behind her flight goggles. "Do not side with those who are blinded by the light. It's them or us." Rainbow Dash scowled. "Want to know the truth?" she said heartily. "You guys can eat my dust." The citrine gemstone in Rainbow Dash's element of honesty flared in Nightingale's face, the Shadowbolt captain recoiling in shock and rage. Very soon, the battle began anew, Witch Elm nursing her bleached eyes aside from the battle that was now 12-9. Spitfire grinned at the thought of that Buccaneer Blaze being implemented as part of the Wonderbolt's regiment. This Rainbow Dash could indeed be useful for the UP. The bright flash front down over Sweet Apple Acres drew all 5 pairs of eyes to the newly thorny Endymion. It almost hurt to look at. So it must have been terribly blinding, so many grosses of hosts below. To the bulk of the land, it was a baffling sight, but Fluttershy screamed in delight.
It's the Buccaneer Blaze! Rainbow Dash is alive! She's alive!
It is? Twilight replied hopefully. What's going on down there? Yelled old Ragus. He's mixing it up with them Wonderbolts and Shadowbolts, do ya? Applejack pondered.
Pinky giggled. I just mean Fire's gonna be in trouble then!
But Continent is encompassed by those thorny vines. Rarity gestured back toward the mountainside capital. Enveloped as it was in a thicket of thorns, so thick it was impossible to enter.
We may well need all 6 elements to dispel them, and with Rainbow Dash so preoccupied.
Hold on, Applejack interjected. A focused look on her face. Let me try something. The element of loyalty burned bright red, and a small kernel of red light appeared in the center of Applejack's pupils as well. An apple-red glimmer beam glanced down from the gemstone in Applejack's necklace, meeting the nearest clutch of tangled vines across the outermost wall of Endymion. The vines writhed and withdrew in agony from the light. Applejack beamed. It's working! But the moment she lit up on the glimmer beam, the vines immediately returned to their previous position, the thorns gleaming like swords and spears in the intermittent flashes of lightning. Fluttershy brought her hoof to her mouth.
Maybe one element needs to be here. No, it's stupid. Please just ignore my suggestion.
No, I think you might be onto something, Fluttershy, Twilight said. Remember the sonic rain boom? Rainbow Dash couldn't do it for herself, no matter how hard she tried. But the moment she does it to help a friend, it comes so easily to her. The solution has to be we. Getting close and taking in pairs, then threes, to see which is most effective for our 5 elements.
Ooh, the scientific method, I like it!
Pinky squealed, flipping about in upside-down midair.
Almost as much as I like being able to hang upside down, I've never been able to upside-down floating midair this long before. My previous best was 3 dozen in 1 second.
So, Applejack, you're with me. Gotcha, sugar. Rarity, you work with Fluttershy and Pinky. Pinky beamed broadly at the fashionista, who returned only a very slight and rather nervous smile. The band of 5 floated off into their 2 individual groups, 3 and 2, less than a gross meters now from the transformed Canterlot. With the band still split up, Twilight indicated 2 separate points and the mangled mess of thorns covering Endymion. Okay, every pony, we focus our efforts on our own sides of Endymion, and we see which one's the most effective.
Pardon me, Twilight,
Rarity asked, feeling the lancet's cut diamond on her element of generosity.
Are you certain that is prudent to be satisfying your inner scientist at the moment? I mean, with the situation being what it is.
The situation being what it is, Rarity, Twilight replied. I think there is nothing more prudent than seeing the power that these elements have when used in certain combinations. Each element is powerful alone, granted, but when paired up, well, what are we waiting for? With an assured grin, Twilight channeled her magic through the crown on her head, light like a pink sun emanating from the star-shaped gem, while the apple-shaped ruby on Applejack's necklace similarly lit up with her channeled earth pony magic. Twin glimmer beams, pink and red, spiraled from each other as they blasted toward the thorny vines choking Canterlot. The rosy lights broke upon the overgrown fortifications, a faint screech filling the air as the vines not only receded, but eroded, slowly and surely crumbling and falling into the saddle valley below. You know, guys, the fact that this fic is also referencing Sleeping Beauty, my favorite Disney movie with my favorite Disney villain of all time, Maleficent, just keeps adding to the points of awesomeness that this fic's been giving me. Twilight Sparkle and Applejack ranged into Dwimmer beams from their respective elements, while Fluttershy, Pinkie Pie, and Rarity, whose beams of purple, blue, and green dimmer energy from their own elements of harmony. Observing the thorny vines that the trio's elements struck, Twilight could not discern any ready difference in the way that the forest of thorns degenerated upon contact with harmony magic. Twilight nodded. All right. So we know that 2 or 3 together have comparable effects on the vines. So, When Rainbow Dash rejoins us, we can split into 3 groups and cover more space on the capital, Applejack finished. Twilight smiled.
My thoughts. Exactly, Applejack.
Cracks of thunder and the report of popping balloons grew closer. Flashes of golden fire radiating from where Rainbow Dash had fallen. The eyes of Twilight's band drifted down, and the conflict between wonders and shadows had begun to drift further upwards towards their location. Despite the fact that the Wonder Bolts had a clear 4-3 advantage over the Shadow Bolts, the Dark Flying team made up for the numerical disadvantage with a severe bloodlust and animalistic fervor. Noises, dreadfully unlike those of ponies, came from the Pegasi and Bat ponies of the Shadow Bolts. They were attempting to strike fear into the Wonder Bolts and Rainbow Dash. Or were those there a mere facade of equanimity that was becoming much more evident with their master Nightmare Moon came closer to greater peril?
You get him, Dashie!
Shouted Pinkie Pie, waving a large banner reading Rainbow Dash's best Wonderbolt. She most certainly is, Pinkie! She most certainly is! In the air, depicting a hastily scrawled picture of Rainbow Dash. Twilight raised an eyebrow.
Where in Equestria did that come from, Pinkie?
Oh, this? Pinkie replied casually.
I mean to celebrate Dashie becoming a Wonderbolt.
That's not what I... Oh, never mind. We've got to help her! A Bat Pony Shadowbolt, who was sent flying by a roundhouse gust from Soren, caught sight of Twilight's band, his eyes roving quickly behind his goggles to the nearing capital. He called out to his captain in a high, screechy voice,
We are being driven towards enemy, our captain!
Nightingale bared her teeth. The spotted spotter! She raised her voice. All Shadowbolts, converse on the capital! Do not let these insurrectionists near the Queen! And the Shadowbolts extricated themselves from their respective duels with each Wonderbolt. Nightingale from Spitfire and Rainbow Dash, Descent from Wave Chill, Windshield from Fleetfoot and Blaze, Wiz Hazel from Fire Streak and Lightning Streak, Apogee from Silver Lining, Parakeet from High Winds, Goldwing from Surprise, and Silver Ghost from Rapid Fire, blasting off at 9 miasmic contrails toward the capital city.
Rainbow Dash!
Cried Fluttershy, tears of joy streaming down her face, as she darted forward and embraced the cerulean Pegasus in midair. Rainbow Dash facing through Fluttershy's green bubble unharmed. Gold and green energies swirled around them from their elements of harmony. The shimmering bubble around the pair, assuming a tie-dye pattern of the elements as 2 gemstones. Rainbow Dash beamed into her fiancé's eyes. I'm here, Flutters. She smiled softly. You really think I would ever leave you without saying goodbye first? Spitfire and her team of Wonderbolts responded to Rainbow's reunion with her band rather kindly and soft-smiled for a hardened band of fires. Twilight floated in front in her pink bubble towards Spitfire. Captain Spitfire, I don't know if we've been properly introduced. I'm Twilight Sparkle, protege of Queen Celestia and bearer of the element of magic. She looked up at the tiara set upon the pole of her head, resting against the back of her alicorn. I've read the dossier on you, Miss Twilight, Spitfire replied, with a bold and blazing smile. It looks like you're set to accomplish the Queen's task that she set upon you, and not a day too soon. I take it you've heard the reports of ponies succumbing to hypothermia? We have, replied the lavender unicorn. It's high time that the sun so down in Equestria once more. But doesn't Equestria need your sunbolt magic until then? Fleetfoot lowered her flight goggles, pink eyes meeting Twilight's. We've covered a lot of ground since we received intel that you 6 were converging on the former Canterlot. We knew that the Nightmare forces would ignore any of our little flight shows in favor of bluffing the security immediately surrounding the Queen. There are many areas now that are already seeing the snow and ice melt away. Plus, our special Sunfire spell is making the rounds to cover the areas we haven't. Sunfire spell? Applejack echoed. Is that big magic fire thing that attacked Nightmare Moon way back when? The one and the same, answered Spitfire. It's powerful magic, not too unlike the Concord Flame itself. It's worked wonders that you can't imagine to fight back the darkness while you've been doing what you need to do.
The Concord Flame? Queried Rarity. What in the world is that?
I don't really know, Twilight said with a puzzled expression. To most ponies, admitting to the arrogance of a certain subject was not a matter of tremendous significance. To not know the finer details of acromology, or how Star Soldier Bearded directed the amorphic spell, was something that most ponies would be surprised to find others with knowledge about. But for Twilight Sparkle to not know something about something.
Wait a second,
Pinkie piped in, her blue bubble bouncing about erratically.
Twilight doesn't know something about something. It's like me not knowing something about parties, or Rarity not knowing something about dresses, or Rainbow Dad not knowing something about Daring Do, or Applejack not knowing something about apples, or...
Thank you, Pinkie Pie, Twilight snapped. As much as a laugh Pinkie Pie could be, there were times when her brand of humor bordered on tedious. But yes, I don't know much about the Concord Flame. It was some sort of magic spirit that roamed the world gross centuries ago, disappearing just before the rise of Nightmare Moon. I've read theories from leading thermologists that it was probably something like the Fire of Friendship that saved the founding mayors from the last ice age and... Twilight's eyes widened in realization. Wow, friendship really did save those mayors that day. That spark of friendship they shared. Smart Cookie, Clover the Clever, Prancing Pansy. It ignited the fire that sloughed out the encroaching window of the Wendigos. It brought the three party tribes together as one. She smiled. Friendship is truly magic. It's been right there under my nose all this time, and I just brushed it off. Well, better late than never, Miss Twilight, said Spitfire. But for now, a capital waits to be retaken. The fiery Pegasus pointed a hoof toward the thorny Endymion, with broad wings flapping slightly harder, the primaries trailing small streaks of flame as they flapped down. Wait a second, Spitfire! Captain Spitfire, Rainbow Dash interjected. What happened to that test shadow boat? I didn't see her fly out to Canterlot with you guys. Spitfire did a double take, feathered wings and feathered ears twitching. You're right, the one you blinded. You have a good eye, Rainbow Dash. Sorry! It's sad to see that she didn't get far. She shouldn't have, but you never know. Soren gave a small salute, before performing a flip with a flap, and diving toward the airspace over Sweet Apple Acres. So, this Sunfire spell is maintaining light and heat about Equestria right now. Twilight asked Spitfire. It must have some degree of sentience if it could do something like that. It sounds like really impressive magic. Well, it is. It's based off of spells that Gerald Firefly herself devised. She's something of an idol to me, but that would make sense for the captain of the Wonderbolts, wouldn't it? She was just an unstoppable mare. The world could use more mares like her. Soren flew up to Spitfire's side, confusion in his brilliant emerald green eyes. Oh, I don't get it, boss, he said in a bemused tone. She just disappeared. I looked around, but there's nowhere she could have gone. What about with echolocation? The winged pony shrugged. I don't think so. Nothing was close enough, I don't think, for any sort of bat pony echolocation to work. Spitfire rubbed her chin. That is a puzzler. But one blind bat pony is not worth worrying about. What we need to do right now is to lay siege to Endymion and destabilize Nightmare Moon's control of the capital, giving you your opportunity to strike. Twilight gave the Wonderbolt captain a salute, as did her 5 friends. Yes, ma'am! The other 5 bears conferred on Twilight, the drummer orbs coalescing and forming a far grander tie-dyed orb, swirling with all 6 colors of the elements of harmony. Okay, girls, Twilight grinned. In pairs, we'll blast away those thorns, choking Canterlot! She received 5 exclamations of assent, the 6 of them turning their elements upon the cluster of clutching vines. Twilight with Applejack, Pinkie with Rarity, and Rainbow with Fluttershy. Swirling demon beams of pink and red, blue and purple, yellow and green, blasted out to the 3 corners of the massive capital. Vines writhed and screamed in the cold night air, crumbling off the battlements and shrinking away from the harmony magic. Many falling to the side of Saddle Valley below. From the capital came the slow bubbling up of cheers of many of its cloister inhabitants, hailed the coming heroes who would free them and their assets from the tyranny of the night. Twilight would have pawed at the ground and challenged the Nightmare Moon, but there was no ground to paw at, so she just merely lowered her head and pointed her alicorn at the pair of high towers on the back of Endymion. All right, girls, let's go! The 6 bearers of elements bolted forward through the air, the 11 wonderbolts backing them up with beams of sunlight trailing behind them all. The flying team broke off as they crossed the threshold into Endymion airspace, darting over the thoroughfares of the Equestrian capital, and sparring the light of day with their sunbolt contrails. In the streets below, numerous ponies, zebras, giraffes, deer, centaurs, and minotaurs looked to the sky and wondered at the rainbow streak of magical light, filling them with a peaceful balm, augmented by the sunbolts that radiated the light and warmth of days they had long since given up on ever seeing again. The populace rose up in a ruckus, calling out the coming of the Queen and rising of the sun. Nightmare guards, too strong-willed to be mind-controlled by Nightmare Moon, threw there in their armor and joined the throng. Hearing the cheers of the Cantalonians below, boistered Twilight and her friends, her fellow bearers. It drove them more quickly toward the tower, which Nightmare Moon called her final bastion. The former towers of the Sun and Moon stood side by side at the back of the mountainside capital for as long as Twilight can remember. But the Tower of the Moon had always been sealed off from public access. The doors and windows had been enchanted to become parts of the wall, apparently done so near the time when Nightmare Moon was banished 1 megagross years ago. The 2 Alicorn queens were evidently the only ones who could undo the enchantments, as the Tower of the Moon was opened once more, though not publicly, as part of the Tower of Everlasting Night, the gleaming crescent-shaped stone hovering between the 2 spires joined by black metal. This was it. This, the end of all this pain and misery. Twilight and her friends descended onto the balcony of the former Tower of the Moon, the first ponies to do so in gross centuries apart from Queen Celestia herself, the glimmer orbs surrounding them fading away as they slowly trotted toward the darkened chamber within. Twilight turned to her friends. "This is it. We end this once and for all!" The 5 nodded wordlessly, and Twilight turned back to the tower interior, and found herself meeting eyes with twin crimson gleams. "Sleep!" Twilight Sparkle blinked her eyes. She was staring at her bedroom ceiling. For some reason, she felt as she had not seen it in ages. Which was strange, as she had never left Canterlot in all her life. Wait, Canterlot? Was it an Endymion? She shook her head. It wasn't important. All that was important was picking up her latest book assignment from the Queen. It just could not be late. Trotting past the basket from which spiked snores emanated, Twilight lit up her Alicorn, her pink glimmer shimmer taking hold of the doorknob and twisting it. And the door swung open, and Twilight trotted through into Queen Celestia's audience chamber. Twilight found herself blinking in astonishment once more. Since when did her bedroom open directly into the Queen's throne room? Through the main doors, no less. Surely, some plutocrat or another would have complained that the main entryway into the audience chamber was interrupted by the bedchamber of the Queen's personal student. For some odd reason, this did not bother Twilight too terribly. Deep inside, this lack of botherment bothered her. Trotting forward across shattered pieces of colored glass, Twilight marveled at how much more easily daylight entered the chamber, with the stained glass depictions of Queen Celestia's triumph lying smashed on the floor. The sky outside shone a bright, blinding white, and it was good, wasn't it? Approaching the throne, Twilight found herself filled with joy at the sight of a shining white alicorn. Before she could do much more than gasp in glee, a torrent of dark red fire erupted around the Queen of Day. The dreadful cries of the legions of Tartarus echoing out and bouncing about the grand chamber. Twilight bolted forward in alarm, trying desperately to reach the Queen before it was too late. But the flames had completely enshrouded the Alicorn now, waves of heat pushing the laboratory unicorn back. When the flames passed and the heat dissipated, Twilight was mortified to see but a singed golden crown was all that remained. The blinding light faded, and almost immediately the room was filled with a deep chill. The crown faded from gold to silver, tarnished and worn. Twilight fell into her haunches. Deceit is setting in. She knew now what this meant.
Why so melancholy?
Nightmare Moon appeared at Twilight's shoulder, a snake's tongue flickering between her fangs, as her serpentine tail waved behind her. The dread Alicorn continued acidly.
Ah, but it's all too apparent. This is your personal nightmare. You fear that you have failed your queen of blinding light, that you have not acted fast enough on her behalf, that you will not be able to recover from this grave error. And you know what, Twilight Sparkle? You're right. You have failed your queen. You did not act fast enough, and you'll never be able to recover from this. This is your greatest nightmare, because you know it to be true. It was never worth it to fight me, you know. I am an immortal, as old as the mountain which Endymion stands. I have seen the first acorn planted of the Everfree, before it choked away the settlements around our first palace. I witnessed the split of the Crystal Mountains that divided Equestria in twain, leading to the birth of the Sea of Alice and Crystal Empire. I have watched you and your kind for 12 gross years, never sleeping, ever scheming, awaiting the time I would escape, so that I may take you little ponies and your word. I need not have fought you, but merely stalled you. 12 megagross more generations can pass for me before I begin to show even the faintest signs of age. Twilight tried to look away from Nightmare Moon, but the dark Alicorn's miasmic mane took Twilight's chin and brought it to level with Nightmare's moon. Your family had become nothing, Twilight Sparkle, so you threw your whole self into satisfying that conniving Celestia. See, or fancy herself a mother to all her little ponies. But is not the darkness the mother of light, Twilight Sparkle? At the night, all stars are enveloped by the dark night. From nebulous crater to nebulous grave, light born in darkness, to die and once more become darkness. The light is fleeting, darkness is eternal. The headless horse slunk out of the shadows behind the throne, standing beside Nightmare Moon, lowering her neck stump, so the first sticker of her black smoke was pointed at Twilight. Nightmare Moon continued. Your struggle was fruitless, but you persisted in the faint and fading hope that you would succeed and please your queen. I may not have been able to snuff your spark of rebellion in the crater, but it has proven futile for you all the same. You will never see your traveling companions again, or your queen, or your son! You're wrong. The words left Twilight's muzzle more surely than any words she had ever uttered in her life. Nightmare Moon recoiled, as did the headless horse. This was not the reaction they anticipated from Twilight Sparkle. Far from crestfallen and devastated, the lavender unicorn appeared furious and driven. She stood with her legs spread wide and torso low, a single hoof pawing at the ground. You're wrong! Twilight repeated, with mounting conviction. I didn't fail Queen Celestia. She sent me to Ponyville to make friends, didn't she? Well, I have made friends. 5 wonderful ponies who I would love to know for the rest of my life. Friends, sneered Nightmare Moon. You are not so interested in becoming friends until your high and eminent queen orders you to do so. Are you certain you have not been sent to a guest that always pleased Celestia Apollonia de Equestria? I can assure you, Nightmare Moon, Twilight replied, that I am of sound mind. Believe me or not, I did not want to go to Ponyville, and I didn't want to make friends, even if the Queen ordered me to. I wanted to find a more scientific, clinical way to ensure your continued sealing within the moon, or your eradication. But, as I got to spend more time with these ponies, I came to realize that I had been too quick to judge the idea of making friends. I had dismissed it before, foolishly, because I could not quantify it by reading about it in a book. I thought that it was just a made-up word for ponies who want something off of some pony else. Looking back, Twilight gave a sad smile. I knew nothing about friendship, and though I now know more than I could have previously imagined, I know I have much to learn. The headless horse's head reared in agitation, and Nightmare Moon's nostrils flared in frustration. What do you know of friendship, Twilight Sparkle? You, who lived all your life in an ivory tower,
rejecting every opportunity to meet some pony outside the covers of a book. You, who so resented your assignment to Ponyville at the onset. You, who fails even now to fully comprehend the power of the elements of harmony that I had a hope of creating. Wrong again, Nightmare. You had no hope in making the elements. Twilight smirked. I know all about you, Miasma, and the hold you have on the true Queen of the Night. She might have helped create the elements of harmony, but you didn't. Nightmare bared her lupine teeth in fury. What's more, let me tell you how you failed, Miasma. The elements of harmony, all 6 of them have been reactivated. I finally understand what Queen Celestia meant by a spark. She remembered the end of Philomea's note from Celestia. Remember, it only takes a spark to start the fire. The miasmic Alicorn flared her wings. You tried to spark on the elements before, but it did not work! Not a literal spark, electrical or thermomusical. You've never heard the tale of Nightmares of Heartswarming, have you, Miasma? Or was that not the importance of the Queen of the Night's memories? Twilight studied the Nightmare's face. I thought not. Well, as we all know, the 3 pony races did not always live in harmony. But about 2 gross years before the Age of Discord, the 3 leaders of each of the pony tribes, Chancellor Puddinghead of the Earth Ponies, Princess Platinum of the Unicorns, Commander Hurricane of the Pegasi, each laid claim to the great expanse of land. However, each refused to accept the claims of the other 2. The 3 leaders, along with their aides, Puddinghead's Smart Cookie, Platinum's Clover the Clever, and Hurricane's Pansy, came to the summit in the valley in the heart of this territory. But a terrible winter that had been plaguing their homelands followed them. Taking shelter in a cave did not help, and though Smart Cookie, Clover, and Pansy huddled together to keep warm, their 3 leaders refused and froze to death. The 3 aides saw past generations of hatred and bigotry, accepting they were all ponies and friends. Though the 3 leaders died from the winter, without and within, their aides lit a spark. I can't believe I had never made this connection before. It ignited the fire of friendship that banished the winter and the specters it brought forth. Smart Cookie, Clover, and Pansy then formulated the United Tribes of Equestria. And the rest is history. Though the fire of friendship was supposedly extinguished during the Age of Discord, I know where a fragment of its power remains to this day. Twilight placed a hoof over her own heart, as she almost felt the feeling of warm metal atop her head once more. Nightmare Moon's eyes narrowed in contempt. So, you have come all this way, and you still understand so little. What power does friendship have other than earning the right to a party every now and again? What a fool Celestia has become to think that the elements could see use again. But you see, Nightmare Moon, I know that you are finished. You want to know how I know this? The black Alicorn stood up straight, lips pursed. Talk all you want, Unicorn. I have more time than you do. Well, you see, I did not set out to make friends, but to see you undone. But the world that I would have created in simply seeing to your demise would not have been a wholesome world. I would have just returned to my tower of books and been done with it. With the Queen giving me the right push, however, I met 5 of the best friends America could hope to meet, and they awakened something in me I would thought would never be roused again. You see, Nightmare Moon, the spark was inside me when I realized, deep down, in my heart of hearts, that these 5 were my friends! Not because I was ordered to make friends, but because I felt a real connection with each one of them. Some came more slowly than others, but I can't imagine a better group of friends. It's so magical. A pulse of pinkish light began to emanate from Twilight's chest, lining up in rhythm with her heartbeat. Nightmare Moon withdrew sharply. How could the light of the elements harm her, even in the dream realm? The headless horse withdrew into the shadows and vanished. Emboldened, Twilight drew the element of magic out fully, the golden tiara appearing on her head, and a pink Dwemer shield appearing on her as the spear once more. As the spear intersected with the floor and throne, they eroded and exposed the black emptiness of Oneron. the play of dreams. Twilight was no oneirologist, but she had read about the Dreamwalkers and the crusades they made against the beast, which led into the realm of sleep and feasted upon the fear evoked by nightmares. Again, I want to remind you people, this fic was written several months before the recent episode, and now we got confirmation. Does he just love it when a fanfic is confirmed? As he had a rudimentary understanding of the workings of the Oneiron, ponies were ordinarily constrained to just their own dream realm, though the Dreamwalkers learned the art of oneirotics from the Queen of the Night, so they could travel from one dream to another. In the distance, Twilight made out the lights of the mines that were dreaming at the moment. The 5 particular lights stood out to her: red, gold, green, blue, and purple. Twilight never thought of herself to be a terribly brave mare. Twilight, have you seen this past fic? But for her friends, she willed herself into the Oneiron. The dormer spear of the element of magic carried her forward with the speed of a gross of horses. Each of her friends were trapped in a nightmare of the miasma's devising, to keep them locked away in misery and terror. The abomination, which possessed the Queen of the Night, meant to keep them all in terrible stasis, wrapped up in their very worst fears, until their bodies deteriorated from starvation and dehydration. Drawn in by the lights of the elements of harmony, Twilight channeled her affection for these 5 mares into her element of magic and reached out and responded raw. A dilapidated swingable Lakers, overrun with the puppet dead. A world that cared not for the escapades of the heroic Rainbow Dash.
Chaos of Couture ransacked and bolted up, and Sweetie Bells turned into a stuffed mannequin. The eyes of the world, staring and judging. A terrible world that frowned upon even the tiniest expression of joy.
Her sympathy radiated out to those 5, as he could feel the effects of those nightmares begin to dismiss upon her friends. They each began to pull out of the powerlessness that the miasma placed them in. Feeling the green light, Twilight could sense that Fluttershy was almost paralyzed by her phobia of other ponies. And Rainbow Dash, who had already emerged from her own nightmare, already reached out in a ray of golden light to bring out Fluttershy's bravery. Pinkie Pie, who seemed to be awakening from the nightmare on her own before Twilight had arrived, sent out sparkling wings of baby blue light that brought a laugh to her lips and bolstered her spirits. Applejack sprang to the sides of each bearer in turn and gave bold encouragement. Before long, all 6 bearers floated in the Oneiron, shining in the colors of each of their element of harmony. The lights of the other ponies around them shimmered with distress. It was obvious that eternal night was bearing on all their minds, awake or asleep. It was time to end this. "We can all wake up, I'm sure," Twilight explained. "If we channel the power of our elements into each other, it'll take the magic of our friendship, bolstered by the elements of harmony, to return to the waking well. Now let's go, my friends!" The semi-regular crack of thunder from the Wonderbolts and Shadowbolts' melee over and around the Tower of Everlasting Night would not have woken the 6 bearers from their forced slumber for all the din it brought. But as the bearers came to, they immediately brought up the Dwemer shield of their elements of harmony. Nightmare Moon lunged at them in fury, but the 6 mares floated up into the air in their prismatic battle. "Yo!" growled Nightmare Moon.
"You're a great big old meanie pants, Queen Meanie,"
Pinkie Pie shouted down.
"You give ponies a bad name,"
Fluttershy called out at her loudest room volume.
"Your selfishness is deplorable,"
snapped Flaherty. "You're a liar and a fraud," shouted Rainbow Dash. "You turned 2 queens against each other, you monster from outer space," Applejack bellowed. "The elements may not have been made by us, Miasma," Twilight began, "but because our hearts are in harmony, we can use them. For Equestria! For the world! For Crescent Rose! Oh yeah, I'm still mad, Nightmare Moon. You killed her. So yeah, you're going down. You're going to pay for her death!" The light of each of their 6 elements brightened to the level of heliocentric suns. A pair of rainbows of light erupted from the peak of the bubble, surrounding the 6 levitating mares, entwining around each other as they dwarfed Alicorn's peak and dimmed the moon and stars above. Tears of triumph frowned down Twilight's face. Queen Celestia maintained the Nycmerion by herself for nearly a dozen gross years, keeping the sun and moon running like clockwork for all this time. You just want to keep everything locked in place, never moving or changing. Queen Celestia is the better Alicorn than you by far, miasma. This is your end, Ultramundamon! No! Shrieked Nightingale, her and her 8 shadow bolts quickly slicing out their Wonderbolt adversaries and diving toward the bearers. With nary a word or order from Spitfire, the 11 Wonderbolts gave quick pursuit. The twin rainbows merged into one, a single beam of red, gold, green, blue, purple, and pink, descending upon the miasmic Alicorn, standing tall upon her balcony on top of the tower. The miasma parted Nightmare Moon's jaws, practically unhinging them in a roar of defiance. Fangs set in black gums glinting in murderous intent. Her Alicorn flared a blinding cyan, but it was like a candle next to the sun when set against the elements of harmony. The rainbow of light encircled her and began to pulsate with a brilliant white light. You know, this is 6 colorful mares, who are adorable, sending out a rainbow against a black Alicorn. This should not be as awesome as it does happen. Twilight's heart, and it's powered by friendship. Twilight's heart filled with a heady feeling of victory, but her world filled with light as she knew no more.
Benny, you're a big boy, small boy, gonna be a big man someday.
You got blood on your face, you bloody disgrace.
Somebody need to put you back into your place. Sing it.
We just rock you! Join us next week, tomorrow, people, for the epilogue.